Good evening. I'm Chris Luther. Welcome to SA Today. We have a special edition of our show tonight. On SA Today, we cover the Student Association, a student government in place to represent the student body of Syracuse University with integrity and honesty. Lately, these values have been called into question. President Allie Curtis's leadership has been challenged with public allegations that she allowed former Public Relations Director Colin Crowley to serve without being enrolled at Syracuse University. Last night, she survived a General Assembly motion to impeach her from the role as president of the Student Association after a 6-hour closed essay session. Curtis makes weekly addresses on this show, and today she will sit down with me to answer tough questions on the controversy surrounding her. But first, we want to give you all the facts as we know them. To do that, we bring in SA beat reporter Leslie King. Leslie?
Good evening, Chris. Last night's Student Association meeting began with the budget hearing. The Assembly voted on hundreds of full, partial, and non-funded programs for organizations on campus. Groups that did not receive funding expressed their intention to submit an appeal. The budget hearing, however, was not the only thing the Assembly discussed last night. During a 6-hour private executive session, Assembly members voted 31-20 not to impeach President Allie Curtis on grounds of accountability, accessibility, and transparency. Before the Assembly went into executive session, students expressed concern with the situation.
I'd like to point out, contrary to how the Daily Orange reported today, our Assembly is still doing great work. Our committee is achieving initiatives, and if it says they're not, that's just a lie. I mean, I sit on a number of different committees or boards, and I see that we're doing great things every day. We're completing initiatives.
However, not all comments were about the association in general. One student was very positive about Allie Curtis's role in SA and on campus.
I just wanted to thank you for everything that you've done for this organization, for this school, because for me to see a leader that has succeeded academically, socially, as a leader on this campus, for me, that's someone I want to see in positions now. That's someone I want to see. That's someone I look up to.
According to the press release behind closed doors, the Assembly proposed 3 different actions that included impeachment, recall, and censure, where Allie would be reprimanded by the Student Association. Before representing Allie with these charges against her, SA cabinet members spoke individually about what they believed the correct course of action would be for Allie. Grievances against Allie included withholding information from the cabinet, proposing a new officer and encouraging the cabinet to approve him without being honest, violating the ethics code regulation forbidding SA members, and being late and not attending various meetings or events, not communicating with members, and promoting an atmosphere of non-transparency and unaccountability.
Now, Leslie, this is obviously, you heard the allegations that were against Allie, and this is obviously a very difficult subject to tackle for SA. So how do you feel like the whole process was handled?
Well, the discussion was led by a director of the Office of Student Affairs, Kevin Tashiro, and this was to ensure fairness and just make sure that the entire process ran smoothly, there was no bias. So overall, I definitely think that this process was handled in the best way it possibly could have been.
Well, Leslie, we're going to keep you around, and then we're going to bring in Allie Curtis, where she'll come in and answer some of the tough questions that she has against or responding to the allegations against her. Don't go away.
Spirit, we're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them. Beat them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad
One more
today.
time. All those boys are much too much. Those boys.
Do you like this top? So gay.
Really?
Yeah, it's totally gay.
You know, you really shouldn't say that.
Say what?
Well, say that something's gay when you mean it's bad. It's insulting. What if every time something was bad, everybody said, "Oh, that's so girl wearing a skirt as a top"?
Oh, you are.
Those are cute jeans, though. When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off.
excited though.
Welcome back, and joining us now is SA President Allie Curtis. Allie, thank you very much for coming on the show with us and taking some of these tough questions. Now, can you please explain to us what was going through your head from the time when Colin said he would no longer be able to take classes, and after the impeachment hearing, can you walk us through, in your own words, what has happened in the last few months?
Well, of course, Colin came to both PJ Lampy and I to sit down with us and talk about his situation. And initially, when you hear someone isn't a student, you would assume they couldn't participate in a student organization. But because there was this OSA clause that allows for community members to serve in student organizations without vote, we both figured that it would be appropriate to let him continue if he relinquished all voting rights and it resigned from the assembly. Of course, this was very much of a muddled situation because we have 2 PR chairs and there's really no protocol for that. So we transferred the powers over to Cara Johnson. She came into my office, we discussed the entire situation, and she felt comfortable and confident in her leadership to do so, given that they were both elected and confirmed by the Assembly at the same time. We went about our everyday business. Colin continued to contribute to the organization, and it came to light, obviously, when a member decided to leak that information because they were angry and they didn't feel that it was appropriate. And while things couldn't, we couldn't really control the situation with his personal scenario in that sense, things definitely could have been handled better, but we felt that we had done the right thing at the time because he had asked for privacy in these matters, and of course because we found this overarching rule for all student organizations.
When was it that Colin told you he would no longer be able to attend classes here at SU, and why not at that moment was he removed or at least brought before the cabinet for a vote on the situation or something of that matter?
Well, easy enough. He came to us right after the financial drop deadline because he had presented this clause and said I can still be here. We didn't see that resignation was a necessary course of action, except of course resigning officially from any voting capacity. He continued to carry on with his duties as PR chair because he wasn't holding an official office. He didn't ask, well actually I'd asked him to present this to Assembly, and he had asked us to not disclose his personal information, and we felt because of the sensitivity of the nature that we would not do so.
So you did not bring this before the General Assembly because he asked you to keep privacy, but do you think that in this situation that maybe the fact that he is so involved in his role that the General Assembly should have knowledge of this? I mean, I know that this is basically, communication is a very big part of your job. It's something you do every day. Do you think that this is one thing that maybe needed to be brought forth to the General Assembly and that might have trumped his need for privacy?
Well, of course, seeing this now and knowing how many members of our Assembly very much view Colin as a friend and somebody who's contributed in great detail to our organization, it could have been something that would have been certainly beneficial if brought forth to the Assembly, and if we had found a way for him to present his case without really disclosing those personal details. I know a lot of this has to do with how students perceive him, and you hear about students having to withdraw or take a leave of absence, and it always brings about questions, and there are students who are skeptical and might have judgments because of their own personal situation, and I know that a lot of this was really in the root of that, to avoid that from happening. He wanted people to continue to see him as he was seen before.
Now quickly, I want you to be able to respond to some of these allegations that were proposed against you. Now, I feel like more of this was more than just what happened with Mr. Crowley. Some of the things is being late or not attending various meetings or events, not communicating with members, promoting an atmosphere of non-transparency. Now, I would just like to present them to you and have you respond to them.
Well, of course, there were some members that expressed that they felt that they had strongly worded this scenario, and there were a lot of heated passions that came about because of this, and now that people have cooled off and have really been more level-headed, I know that they weren't ill-intentioned. And moving forward, of course, not attending meetings. As vice president, I certainly filled in for Dylan from time to time. There was a time that I was very sick. I had strep throat, per se, and that's something that's contagious and wouldn't ever want to get anyone else sick in my cabinet. So I allowed Dwayne to carry about our cabinet meeting. I was late to another cabinet meeting because we had actually changed the times, and there was, of course, a lack of communication from one member on that who had set up our meeting So those weren't really valid reasons for somebody being impeached, especially because as students there are things that we have to go to, like class. And I have a very demanding academic schedule.
So there was a lot of lack of communication that was involved in this. Well, thank you so much for coming to talk to us. And up next, we're going to speak to parliamentarian Ben Jones. He'll be here with us to discuss last night's meeting and give his opinion. Don't go away.
There is no credit fairy.
How else will I get a better credit score?
Look, you keep your credit card balances low and only open a new card if you really need it.
No fairy?
There's no magic to improving your credit, but there's help, and it's free. Go to creditfairy.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks. Visit us at stoptextsstopwrecks.org.
You didn't give up on sex. Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
And joining us now is SA parliamentarian Ben Jones to discuss about the procedures that SA took to handle this situation in the past week. Ben, thank you very much for joining us.
And now, Ben, can you just give us a look inside of last night's executive session? You know, were the rules followed? Did everything go as planned? Was there healthy debate? Things that, as a parliamentarian, you would really like to see.
Absolutely. There isn't a whole lot of precedent as far as this goes, impeachment proceedings. So we kind of devised a new procedure. We set a time in our executive session for a general discussion, and that actually took the majority of the time. Like 4 out of the 6 hours, probably. And then we proceeded into our pro-con debate, and I think it was a very healthy debate.
Now, moving forward, the vote was 31 to 20, and obviously 20 were pro impeachment, 31 were against, which allows Allie to remain in the position of president.
Yes.
So, moving forward, those 20 members that were pro impeachment, how do you feel like that will move with the whole overall feeling of the General Assembly? Will that provide some controversy moving forward, or how will you guys get over the disagreements?
I am very confident that we will be able to continue our work. We've been able to continue our work during these proceedings, and we'll be able to do so afterward. We're all human, but in the end, we're all here for the students, and I know that we can put issues behind and focus on the work for our students and focus on working in the best way for our assembly, and I know that we can do that.
So, do you believe that this controversy has caused any harm to the reputation of SA since all of this has taken place?
I understand frustrations about this. To take several hours to discuss internal matters is something that I understand people being frustrated with, but I think that this communication that we had needed to happen. And this is certainly going to make sure that communication continues to happen so we don't have to get out of assembly at 2:30 in the morning ever again. While this did happen, and while I understand student concerns, I think that in the end this is beneficial for us.
And many people were talking about how, they were worried about the lack of transparency, yet there was a 6-hour closed session instead of open. I understand the need to air out grievances, instead of having the public there, but do you think that these worries are warranted?
I understand the concerns. I definitely feel that transparency is something we need to work on. But our prime concern during last night's meeting was on being able to communicate as an organization. That was part of the reason that we were at this state, and we needed to address that. So I feel that now that we've been able to communicate, and now that we know to communicate better, we can continue on as a better assembly for the students.
Thank you very much, Ben Jones, for joining us. And we thank Allie Curtis for coming on as well. For Leslie King, I'm Chris Luther. That's all for this edition of SA Today. Have a great night, Syracuse.